Hey, welcome to Sports Map Houston. I'm Brandon Strange. This week I'm joined by Brad Kellner. You can catch him on The Wheelhouse weekdays from 3 to 7, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 FM in Houston. Hey, Brad, welcome in. I know you may not keep up with the channel that much, but on the channel we really haven't talked a lot of Rockets recently, and that's because mainly the Astros have kind of dominated that sports bandwidth here in the city. But when we have a chance, we like to bring them up. And I wanted to bring it up this morning just because we're seeing a lot of positive signs out of the Rockets over the last handful of games. We've seen Jalen Green look phenomenal. Jabari Smith really turning a corner in his season. We saw Şengün have a near 2020 game versus the Thunder. We're seeing some encouraging signs out of Ty Washington, out of Rio Grande. To you, what's been the most encouraging sign out of this Rockets team recently?
Yeah, first of all, Brandon, I'm honored to be invited here. I'm always keeping up with what you guys are doing over at sportsmap.com and on this YouTube channel too. So y'all do great work all the time, and it's great to be invited to be on one of these videos. And you're right, we have seen some pretty encouraging signs from the Rockets over the last couple of games. First of all, they're winning games. They've won 2 in a row. That's great to see. But you brought up a couple of the guys that I think are incredibly important to talk about. For me, the 2 most important pieces for the future of the Houston Rockets are Jalen Green and Jabari Smith. And Jalen Green went through a 3-game stretch where he didn't crack 20 points. His shot was off a little bit. The 3 balls weren't falling. Well, these last 2 games, 30 points against the Hawks in that win, and then 28 points against the Thunder over the weekend. He also had a career-high 9 assists as well, so looking more comfortable in this offense. Jalen Green has superstar potential. We saw that at times last year. We've seen it over these last couple of games. We're just looking for that to be more and more consistent with him, but the potential is absolutely there for that dude to be an all-star a number of times over the course of his career. So watching those shots fall a little bit more for Jalen Green is great to see. And then Jabari Smith, it's been an up and down rookie year for him, if we're being completely honest, but he scored 15 plus in 3 straight games for the Rockets after only doing that 3 total times over the course of this season to this point. Big-time fourth quarter for him against the Hawks after DeJounte Murray, I'm not sure who the hell that guy thinks he is, but after he tapped Jabari Smith on the head after making one of those threes, the Hawks were talking all sorts of trash. Jabari Smith played all 12 minutes of that fourth quarter, locked down defensively, scored 21 points in that game. It feels like he's kind of coming into his own too. So you brought up Şengün, you brought up Ty, KPJ deserves some love as well. KJ Martin's been really good for this team. A lot of guys worth talking about, but for me, getting to watch Jalen Green and Jabari Smith play the way that they have over these past couple of games has been very, very encouraging.
Yeah, and you're right. I didn't mention KPJ, and KPJ has certainly been in the middle of all this and has played some really good basketball this year. What I really want to talk about is what you touched on, which was Jabari and the Atlanta incident. And you know what I really like out of Jabari is it seems like he's a guy who doesn't look unbothered about losing. And sometimes in the NBA that can kind of come across. There was a guy that used to play for Houston that sometimes looked unbothered by losing. And we've seen Jabari Smith not afraid to mix it up. And sometimes even with his own teammates. But against Atlanta, you mentioned it, we saw Smith take exception to some of the antics from DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. What do you am I alone in that? Is it just me, or I like a guy with a little rough edge to him?
No, I'm with you 100%. And I agree with what you said a little bit earlier about, I don't know if everyone's been super committed to winning at times around this franchise over the last couple of years. So to see that competitive fire from these guys. Look, I don't think the Rockets come back from 16 down and beat the Hawks unless the Hawks weren't talking the trash that they were talking, right? I mean, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, those guys were trying to show up the Rockets, and I think it sort of lit a fire under them and inspired them to play motivated. And they were awesome. That was the best defensive quarter I think I've seen the Rockets play all season long, what they did in the fourth quarter of that one against Atlanta. Their most impressive win this year without question to date. Atlanta's a good team. I don't know if they're championship contenders, but they can make a run in the playoffs with the guys that they have on that roster. And it looked like they were bothered. They were pissed off by the way the Hawks were celebrating on their home floor as I bang into the microphone. I'm so energetic about this topic. But they looked ticked. They looked bothered by what happened, and I think that inspired them to play well. So, yeah, Jabari Smith, once again, he played all 12 minutes in that fourth quarter, 21 points for him, getting it done on both ends of the floor. He wasn't ticked off. He handled that situation incredibly well. At least he didn't show that he was ticked off, but he played kind of ticked off just like the rest of the Rockets did. So, yeah, nice to see some of that energy, and it feels like the culture may be starting to change a little bit. A lot of these guys are used to losing because the Rockets have been the worst team in the NBA the last couple of years. It's good to see that they're not just resigned to the fact that they're one of the worst teams in the league, and they're actually caring about trying to turn things around and winning some games this season.
No, and you're not always going to have that sort of in-game motivation like that, with like they had with Atlanta, where Atlanta in the third quarter starts clowning on their home court. One of the places that you hope the team gets that sort of encouragement from would be from the coaching staff. But one of the ongoing criticisms of this team has been coaching, whether it's in-game decisions, lineups and rotations, even sometimes challenges, questionable challenges. Steven Silas' handling of Şengün in the lineup and his rotation and kind of drawing up plays for Jalen towards the end of the game. It's just been inconsistent. And the team was not supposed to be good this year, but they certainly haven't outperformed any preseason projections. That said, have you seen anything out of Steven Silas that would lead you to believe that a change might be made over the offseason?
I think so. And it might not happen mid-season unless things completely fall off the rails. But you said it, Brandon. I mean, look, this was not expected to be a playoff team by any stretch of the imagination, but we expected improvement, right? Like the Vegas win total for the Rockets, I think, was 20.5. I thought for sure they'd get over that, and I thought they needed to get over that for Steven Silas to be brought back for another season. So, yeah, a lot of the same issues we've seen from this team over the entirety of the Steven Silas era have reared their ugly heads this season. This is still one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. I know that fourth quarter against the Hawks was really good. They played pretty well against the Thunder in that win a couple of days ago too, but still, most of the metrics and the eye test will tell you that this is one of the worst defenses in the league. And then the rotations, right? Şengün still not getting enough minutes. The point guard situation with KPJ not always smooth. There are a lot of people who think that experiment should be put to bed altogether. So yeah, this team, I didn't think they'd be a play-in team or a playoff team, but I expected them to be better than they have been thus far. And look, the last 2 wins are great. Hopefully it's something the Rockets can build off of, and hopefully they can get closer to 30 wins, which is where I was hoping they'd get to this season. But the 3-14 start, which is where they were before these last couple of games, that couldn't and that shouldn't keep Steven Silas around for another year. This team should be better than what they have been for the majority of this season.
And you hope to see it. We hope to see development. We hope to see, like you said, this be a bouncing off point for them for the rest of the season. Again, we understand, the way the roster is constructed, and just there's not, there's a kind of general lack of talent there right now. That's, and experience mainly, to allow them to be, a team that's going to close and close hard. But hopefully we'll see that turn. Hopefully, Jabari Smith Jr., this is the same kind of turnaround for him we saw for Jalen Green last season. So we'll continue to talk about it during the season as it unfolds. I appreciate the time with you, Brad, this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Brandon.